Welcome to the Fantasy Week in Review for Week 14. And now that all the smoke is cleared, we have another week in the books. Week 14 saw 4 games, 1 pillow fight, and a very clear playoff picture. So let's not waste any time, guys. Let's get right into it. We opened the recap of last week's action with Slap and Pickle versus Turn Down for What. Turn Down for What locked up the second overall pick in the draft, as Slap and Pickle locked up the second seed. After learning his lesson last week, Slap and Pickle started Joique Bell, and it paid off as he racked up 35 points. Turn Down for What is in the market for a running back next year, finishing the season with 3 on IR and 2 combining for 1.5. Chris Johnson was his best option this week, so clearly an upgrade is on his mind. So we'll see what he can do in next year's draft. In our second game, we had Pocket Rocket versus the Sandusky's. The Sandusky's get to play our league's version of Baylor and petition for a 2-team expansion as they miss the playoffs with a winning record and the most points in the league. Speaking honestly, I'm sure all the other playoff teams were happy to see them packing it up for next season. Pocket Rocket ends the year on a sour note, falling to the Sandusky's after a second crazy week from the Rams D. Pocket Rocket ends the season as the lowest scoring playoff team. Will that be a factor heading into next week's playoff matchup? Next up, we had Bout That Action versus Always Late to Cromartie. Bout That Action found their golden ticket this week, almost exclusively because of second-round pick AJ Green and third-round workhorse Le'Veon Bell, who combined for 110 points. And late-season free agent pickup CJ Anderson adds 3 TDs to cap off a great week for Bout That Action as they slot into the number 3 spot for the playoffs. Always Late to Cromartie had an unusual week as Demaryius Thomas was held to just 3 points while Matt Stafford pitched in 23 points. However, Joe Mama Flacco scored 25, keeping the improbable streak alive. Some owners are trying to start a movement to have this momentous occasion featured on the Fantasy Mailbag. Hey, any press is good press, and as they now look forward to the 23rd overall pick in next year's draft, one can only wonder where they plan to add some talent. Finally, in our last game of the week, we had Publix Crab Special versus the Hitmen. In a cruel twist of fate for the Hitmen, his Carolina Panthers dominated their division rival as Cam Newton and Jonathan Stewart combined for 76 points. Sadly, only 38 went to the Hitmen's overall score. The Hitmen's hunt for the Great White Buffalo picks back up next year's number 1 pick. For Publix Crab Special, they pick up their 9th win this week after a solid outing. Now, if you thought last week was crazy for Publix, this week was even better, as over the last 2 weeks, Jimmy Graham has scored just 5.5 points, while Peyton Manning has scored 15.48. Dumb stat alert. Publix is 2-0 when Manning scores less than 15 points. Does he want to keep that streak active? I'm sure Pocket Rocket wants to keep that streak going. And now, the game review you were all waiting for, as PY Can't Handle Me took on Donda Esta La Biblioteca. And this game is the game where highlights were featured every other play, as Johnny Manziel held a clipboard with Justin Bieber-like swagger. Theo Riddick did his best Reggie Bush impersonation, and Julius Thomas wore a uniform only to not touch the field. This had the intensity of a strobe-lighted epileptic pillow fight as PY locks up next year's 3rd, 4th, 13th, and 14th overall picks, while Donde Esta La Biblioteca signs the Sandusky's expansion petition. Will it succeed? Only time will tell. And now we get into the hunt for the Great White Buffalo. In our first playoff matchup, we have number 1 seed Pocket Rocket, who are 10-4, taking on the Publix Crab Special, who are sitting at 9-5. Publix Crab Special is hoping that Peyton Manning strong-arms San Diego's defense like he strong-arms Brock Osweiler during a blowout, and he hopes to advance to the first battle of the Great White Buffalo. For Pocket Rocket, they try to rebound after losing to the Sandusky's, their first loss in 7 weeks. And since St. Louis didn't put up 50 on Thursday night, some might say that he's sweating a little bit. Our second matchup is Bout That Action 9-5 versus Slap and Pickle 10-4. In an unprecedented third matchup this season, Bout That Action will look to complete the sweep of their rival Slap and Pickle behind Le'Veon Bell. Word has it that if Bout That Action wins the whole league, they may use some of the winnings to buy a custom Le'Veon Bell Redskins jersey, because the Redskins have no players worth buying a jersey for. Slap and Pickle thought they'd fall out of the playoffs a few weeks ago, but the team responded and now they are a game away from the Battle of the Great White Buffalo. In an ESPN cliche, it's tough enough for a team to beat another team twice in a season, let alone 3 times. Statistics would favor Slap and Pickle, but this is fantasy, so real-life statistics be damned. And last, but certainly not least, we have this week's Fantasy Awards. The Fantasy Dud of the Week goes to Peyton Manning, who puts up his second straight terrible performance. You have to start wondering, is something wrong with Manning? Was it weather conditions? Because C.J. Anderson and Juwan Thompson certainly got plenty of work the last 2 weeks. The What the Hell Player of the Week goes to the Hitmen's Jonathan Stewart, who put up 38 points. Stewart had not scored over 20 all year, so he obliterated his season high this week, and the Hitmen were fortunate enough to reap the benefits of those points. Well, that does it for this week's fantasy review. Hope you guys liked the new logo. Hope I didn't drive you guys too crazy, and best of luck to all the fantasy teams in the playoffs, and best of luck to all the teams in the draft next year.